In the beginning, the stories, they all belong to the sky god, but the people who lived them, they lamented. For the people of all the worlds, they hungered for their own stories, and I hungered. So I planned, and I was clever, much more clever than the sky god, and all who hung on the words. I hung them on the tricky threads of my mischief. Now they say all stories are Anansi's stories. That suits me. Yes, all stories are Anansi's. But on occasion, I share them with the people. Today, I share them with you in Anansi's Tapestry of Lives. Anansi's Tapestry of Lives is a new tabletop role-playing game supplement filled with varied and various non-player characters to populate your game world. Created by Game Masters for Game Masters, Anansi's Tapestry of Lives is overflowing with NPC descriptions, details, and illustration. The NPC voiceover app gives you access to professionally voiced acted introductory monologues for each and every NPC, along with all the NPC details on your phone or tablet. Virtual tabletop tokens for every NPC makes it easy to bring these beloved characters into play on Roll20, The Forge, or your other favorite VTT. For in-person play, Anansi's NPC cards are tarot-sized reference decks. Each card has the NPC image on one side and important details on the other. Anansi's Journal of Commonplaces provides you with richly detailed descriptions that typical adventure books don't cover. When your players stumble into the castle kitchen or are foraging in a wild berry patch on the road, you can describe the scene perfectly. Plus, you're prepared with hidden details should they search the area. All these tools make your life easier while enriching your gameplay experience. And you get access to these and more by backing our Kickstarter campaign. Back us today to bring these tools to your table and bring your stories to life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radiant Stories, where this week, instead of our usual game and where I try to scare everybody and they make hysterical jokes and we still have fun anyway, we're going to do a Q&A because we're having a little bit of a bye week this week. We have a couple of these to give people a break in between, especially our production people who do a lot of work. So thank you, production people. I'm going to thank them at the end again. I'm just going to thank them multiple times. But this week we have most of the crew who were involved in Written in Blood, which is the adventure that the last 3 episodes of Radiant Stories covered, as well as some overarching things. So beware, there's going to be some spoilers for the last couple of episodes, but not for the entire campaign, because there's still more to come. There's still more mysteries to be solved, but that's for later. Let me give the floor over to my wonderful players to give them a chance to introduce themselves.
All right, I'll start. Hey, everybody, I'm Alicia Marie, at Alicia Marie Body on socials. I'm a professional costume artist and improv performing artist. And on Monday nights, you can catch me on the Glass Cannon Network, where we play Traveler, a game called Voyagers of the Jump. It's a lot of fun. On Tuesdays, Children of Erte, which is a 5e game, which also we have Lauren and Jennifer in that game as well. And that's Tuesday nights. And then, of course, Friday nights here for Radiant Stories of Be NeverEnding. I play Cricket, and she has the dubious long sort of descriptor, wild hunt shifter, philosophy domain of the grave cleric. And this is something I did talk to Lauren about and how to make it work, but that kind of is the best way to describe what she is and what she does. And I'm having fun playing with her because she's my first like healer type cleric. So yeah, Cricket's been a lot of fun for me.
Yay. Hi, I'm Jen Kretschmer. You can find me on Twitter as @DreamWisp. You can find me streaming on Twitch as DreamWispJen. I also am part of Children of Erte with Lauren and Alicia, and also Vampire the Nightlife on Play Renegade, among other endeavors. I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I am the creator of the Accessibility in Gaming Resource Guide, and I do all sorts of other weird stuff. I have about 25 different random jobs and titles. Here, I usually play Wisteria, your friendly neighborhood cottagecore flower arranging bard, who just wants to have tea and book club.
Awesome. Don't
And
we all?
also-
I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. What is it?
I was gonna say, like, I identify a lot with the having all of the job titles, like the hustle.
Yep.
But I am Mario Ortegon. You might know me as one of the writers for Radiant Citadel and the upcoming Dragonlance book for D&D. I've also written a bunch of other things, including Hunter the Reckoning. I didn't write Hunter. I wrote as part of a team.
Yay.
For
Nope, it's
Hunter
yours.
the
You're a writer
Reckoning.
for it then.
You are Hunter. You are the Reckoning. It's all you.
There's a stamp by Mario.
Yeah.
Yes. I want that cover.
A Mario production.
Yeah. So I've written for a bunch of other stuff, and I for this stream specifically, I was involved in our last 3 chapters, playing Vint, who is a roguish type of character with some psychic powers, and kind of a troubled backstory with the place where the adventure took place. So that's going to be interesting to chat about in the next few minutes. But yeah, that's me.
Yay.
Good stuff.
And I'm Lauren Urban, your humble DM. You can find me on Twitter as OboLauren. I'll say right here at the beginning, before we dive into things, if anybody in the chat does have questions for any of us here on stream, we're more than happy to try to answer a bunch of questions. If we don't get to your question, it might be just because we don't want to answer it yet, because there's still more to come. But we're going to try to be focusing on the last 3 episodes, Written in Blood, because that one we can kind of talk about as a whole. So if you do have any questions for any of us, go ahead and put question in big capital letters in the chat before your question, because we have an awesome moderator in chat who's going to be grabbing those for us so that we can pay attention to answering the questions and don't have to worry about trying to quickly scroll in chat. And I've been your humble DM for the Radiant stories for all of this funness. And not only am I on Children of Erte, I usually don't talk about any of my own stuff. So I'm totally off track, because I usually just go, all right, here we go. And so I'm on Children of Erte on Tuesdays. And the one thing I did want to talk about, since we have all the wonderful Idle Champions folks in chat, thank you for joining us, on Wednesday of next week for the 5th anniversary of Idle Champions. We're doing Idle Champions Presents Vecna Lives, which is a one-shot that Aaron M. Evans is going to be running that includes V Muse, Nora Ibrahim, Masood Hoke, and me, which means it's Orkira and Gosrick and Nahara and Voronika, which, if you know those characters, that's an interesting group of people. So you're gonna have to watch on Wednesdays to see what that is all about. But for tonight, we are focusing
Lots of
on
hard consonants in those names.
I had to think a lot about many of those names, and usually I leave off the vr in the Voronika, because I give it either way too many R's or way fewer R's than there should be. So I try to just be as accurate as possible. But we're going to be talking about Written in Blood and the last couple episodes of Radiant Stories. I'm going to start this off while we get questions going in chat. I'm going to start this off with something I told the players, I think before we started or before we got to this adventure.
Yeah.
I started writing the overarching adventure for Radiant Stories, the big one, over all 12 episodes, before the book came out. And because, you start writing and you start writing and you keep writing. And then the book came out. And if you've been watching in the last couple of episodes, there's a proclaimer named Proclaimer Tungsten Ward. I did not know that. I did not plan on that. And so the need to get information about tungsten, I had written into the adventure long before I knew that there was a character. So when I started reading Written in Blood, this adventure, when it came out, and I got to the Proclaimer, I freaked out. I was very happy and also very scared that I had
Mm-hmm.
done something right and or wrong at the same time. So
Into being.
serendipity is weird, like spelled the same in everything, not like, you know, this is just pronounced like tungsten. So yeah, for any of you who are like, oh, you know, Lauren's been tying everything together. Like a good DM, yes, I am, but sometimes it just happens for me.
Wow.
And
You're plugged in somewhere, somehow, Lauren, I guess.
I
Yeah.
mean, I wish that
It was
happened all the
fate.
time. I guess. I don't know. So here's a good question that just came up that we can all answer, and I'll let some of you answer first. How was it? They ask running, but I'll say playing a horror adventure versus the tone of the campaign.
Oh.
Well, this was my first experience. So, I mean, go ahead, you two. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I joked at the beginning that like I threw a horror game at you, and then we made a bunch of jokes, which is totally fine. But yeah, so there was a little bit of a shift in tone. What was that like, and did you anticipate it, and was it good?
I mean, I'm a horror nerd. I love horror games and settings and stories and movies, and wrote my thesis about it. And I'm fascinated by horror as a psychological and biochemical process. Like all of those things are a weird niche nerddom for me. So I love playing horror stories. I am a strong believer in balance in stories, and so I think you have to connect to characters to be afraid for them. You have to care about people for stakes to matter. And so humor is a really great way to make that happen. So
it releases pressure
when you're,
somewhat.
yeah, I mean, the contrast of a group that sort of is joking about things and that you care about, and then suddenly putting them in the peril of the kind of things that we were encountering, and also sort of the themes of trauma that are relevant to this, I think is always a really interesting and important juxtaposition, because if it's just a one note of everything is tragic and terrifying all the time forever, there's no dynamic to that, and so you never get a chance to have a release or a laugh or, you know, anything that other than feeling that tension, which very quickly that adrenaline will wear off, and you can't stay involved. But if you have those moments to kind of let loose and be silly and, you know, have just different tones and colors and flavors happening in the story, then I think you can actually take things further and into more interesting places. So I thought it was really fun, and I loved that Lauren was like, okay, it might get really intense tonight, and then the rest of us are like
One of the things I love that Lauren wrote, like in our private chat, she was like, I know this group. I knew how it was gonna go. I'm gonna say I love the fact that the scariness, like the horror, it caught all of us off guard. Like, I think it caught the viewers off guard, but us too. Like, we were all like, do monster, do warehouse, do farmers with rusty tools, do wagon. Like, it just started progressively get like, what's happening here? And you can tell that all of us got sort of went from this to sort of like, what's happening now? Which was kind of cool, because the audience got to experience it with us. And like Jen was saying, we've been playing D&D and doing role-playing stuff, all of us, for a while. And sort of stepping into your character's skin is part of the fun of playing the game. So when we react, how our characters would react if they were put in a situation like this. So you really do feel the adrenaline. You really do feel like in your theater of the mind, like, what is my character seeing and going through like this? Like, we see a hole in the floor in the kitchen, but there's 4 farmers standing in a circle. Like, that's creepy. Can I leave now?
Yeah.
You know?
That was one of the creepiest moments for me, actually. It's the subtle things, you know, like just the things that you imagine and just like, just imagine it imagining it just gives you the creeps. It's really weird. To me, it was awesome. Like I have to say, just in general, I really love horror stuff. It's kind of like my safe place in a way, because like, I never understood. I was a really frightful child. Like when I was a kid, everything scared me, and as I grew up, I kind of like leaned into that in a way. And in recent years, I mean, I deal a lot with anxiety in my day-to-day life, and in recent years, I've learned that those are kind of like my release for that in a way. So it's kind of like a safe place to release tension and anxiety, which is really fun. So yeah, I loved it.
And I think it's important to add that also knowing that this group was a group that trusted each other and had safety tools in place, where if things were going off the rails, or even there was a day I was really not feeling well, I was like, hey, I know we've been doing a lot of stuff around like food stuff. Can we not today? Because I'm just not feeling well and want to be able to play. And that's not going to keep me in the game. And so that's using the tools that we have available to make sure that everyone is feeling comfortable and able to go to those places. And that's the nice thing about safety tools, is they provide those walls. So that as long as people have established those and feel comfortable using those, that you're okay to really go there with the story, which is great.
Yeah, safety tools I've definitely changed how I perceive them. I've always liked them, but that idea of safety tools are, it's not a closing of a door to me. It is, here is the buffet that I have options from. And maybe this buffet just happens to not have chicken in it. And that's okay. So kind of thinking of it that way of this is how I'm finding out what is at the buffet, and just taking the other stuff out. I did want to ask Mario, because you came in on the first episode of this adventure, and you got a little bit of the fun before things turned dark. And then your character also, like you talked about, has a little bit of that, I don't want to call it tragic, but a very dark but interesting backstory. How much of that transition, like your introduction, the silliness of getting child's toys that look like you, scary farmers, like did that feel, was that fun? Was that natural? Or was that like a roller coaster?
I mean, all of the above. No, it was very fun. I mean, I kind of knew like where we were going just overall. I knew, just from having worked on the book and hearing, like I'm close with Erin, so we've chatted about what our adventures are about. I hadn't read it in detail because I knew that I would be playing it. But yeah, like I kind of knew in general where we were going from, and that helped me prepare a little bit for it. And also, we talked about, off camera, or sorry, well, after the stream, we would talk about like me sort of like setting up things here and there, mostly certain things that I would say, like, oh, I remember this place being beautiful, and everything was just having this like idyllic idea of remembering this place as a child. All of that, I mean, that was basically me saying, Lauren, please, I mean, here are these hopes and dreams of my characters, please shatter them.
So good. Like every time
I really want that on a t-shirt.
Every
much character, shatter them.
hopes and dreams. I'm just gonna put these over here in a box, and then mallet.
Just an image of a DM, and then just a shattered mirror that says hopes and dreams.
Here's the knife that I'd like you to put in my back later. But that's like, I very much appreciated that, because that is, even if you hadn't known anything, that kind of offering of information, knowing that it's going to give you more world building back, or it's going to give you more story back, or it's going to, and this is kind of true for not just DMing and playing, but like players with each other, being able to put something out there specifically that not only feeds into your character, but allows another person to yes and on top of that. And the first time you did it was when they got to the festival, and you specifically were like, oh, I'm gonna look for all the vegetables and all the fresh vegetables that I remember. I was just like, I love you so much right now. Here we go. And just being able to dig into that was super fun.
It was amazing.
The hardest one was in the cart when you were asking Proclaim Reward about some very specific things. And me making sure that I was both honoring your character, but also not coming up with a song right off the bat that was going to be bad. Kind of that back and forth. So that was the point where I was like, oh, this is amazing. I need to honor this as best as possible.
Can we just take one quick second to talk about your singing and how amazing that moment was? And
oh my God.
Wait a second. The goosebumps from that moment, that was so beautiful.
Okay, I'm glad it worked, because I keep forgetting to tell you how incredible that moment was.
I was proud of you. I couldn't do it. I can't sing, and I wouldn't even have like the bravery to sing, but like you like went right in there. Like I was like, whoa.
Yeah. And I will say all of those songs are original by you, if I'm not mistaken. Like they're not actually in the adventure. So if you're gonna run these adventures, it might be in your best interest to take notes and I mean, if Lauren is okay with that, because they're amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When I read through you're right. In the adventure, the Awakening song is mentioned a lot, and the influences of it and how important it is, and the song that you're specifically talking about when Kiana is singing is referenced as you hear a young woman singing, and she is specifically singing the song that tells the tragic story of what happened to Cully. But no, there's no lyrics, there's no music. So I did a lot. I listened to a lot of music before this. I was listening to, so a lot of what's the obvious draw would be the call and answer songs, call and answer spirituals, stuff from, especially from the South. But I also wanted to dig into other influences that could come up, because if you're gonna, and this is probably me, if you're going to not only tell a story of your history in verse, but in songs specifically, I think it's important it have variety, and it's not just, if the whole thing is just really specific call and answer style. I think if you're listening to someone's history, a civilization's history, by like year 43, you're going, okay, I got this. So I listened to a lot of Cab Calloway. I was listening to a lot of early jazz.
I love
and a lot of that. Yeah, it was. And as a classical musician, it was a lot of fun and terrifying to dig into. But I do really appreciate that. And yeah, I will. I don't know how I'll put the song out there. I'm looking at it now, which
lyrics to some of them, because I copied and pasted, but maybe there's a way we could put them. I don't know.
Yeah. Because I've got the song that I sang as Kiana, but there's also the original second verse. And if we had had more time, because we were getting towards the end of the episode pretty quickly, some of your history checks, you would have remembered the whole song, the original second verse. So the history checks that I had you made, the ones that were high enough, you just remembered, oh no, that's not how the story goes. The story is actually, Tungsten Ward told us about this. But I did write the original second verse because I'm like, I might have to sing it. So yeah, if you are, and I'll
yourself a DM who writes you original epic songs.
Well, and I will give advice to people out there who are thinking, oh, well, then I can't run this adventure. Absolutely no. Absolutely you can. You do not have to sing. You do not have to come up with an entire song. Like I said earlier with Mario, in one of those moments, I didn't have a song prepared. And so what I did was just describe, what is the song talking about? What are the feelings behind it? How long ago was it created? What is the tone? If it is a call and answer song, does the player remember the answer? Going into that kind of detail, both as a DM running this adventure, but also for bards, that this happens a lot where people think I'm playing a bard, I have to sing. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
For the same reason the barbarians don't actually have to swing a sword. You can just describe what you're talking about, and it will be just as effective. You do not have to sing the song, any song. So yeah, if that's terrifying you, the adventure is really good about giving you the information you need and the tone that you need to help you with all of those descriptors. And then you can go in any direction that you want. And your players won't ask you to just sing a song. I'm pretty positive that won't happen, especially if
they might, but you don't have to
but you don't have to. You don't have to. Then that's when you look at the bard and go, really? But but yeah, I did.
Hey, don't look at me. I plant flowers.
Produce a flower right now. But yeah, that's the joy of D&D, is like we can use the descriptions and we can use the tone setting, and especially at that point where you're so close to the end and so much of the tension and the horror has happened, it doesn't take much description for your players to be in that moment and to feel those goosebumps, even if all you're saying is you hear the sound of a young woman's voice and she's singing this song. And as you listen to the words, it's the story that you remember, but it's changed at the end. Everything is different. It's supposed to be the sad, you can go into that and your players will grab onto it. But I appreciate
the delivery is really important. Like I can tell in your eyes, like you have these really blue eyes and they just got really intense, and all of us just sort of went like this. I saw everybody do.
and your players will also help you with that. Like your players are sitting down to an adventure like this wanting to, once you get past your safety tools and talking about the kind of adventure you're going to run, they've signed up for this train ride. They've signed up for this roller coaster. They want to be immersed. So they're going to meet you halfway, like all of you did.
It seems like it would be like, I would love to do more DMing in general, and I definitely plan to as soon as I finish these 2 costume commissions. But it seems like it would be really difficult to run a horror game because the veils and lines would be so important, because so many people have things that are like sensitive or triggering or whatever. So I have to commend you. Like you did really well with. I would be so afraid to like step on people's like things over and over again, because horror is supposed to be sort of, kind of pulling back those curtains a little bit. I don't know.
I think Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft does a really great job of sort of addressing some of those fears. I think I'm a huge fan of horror games, and they are really difficult to run sometimes. And I think Van Richten's is really a masterpiece in a lot of ways, because it does give such great practical advice about running horror campaigns. There are also some really great articles about sort of building tension and what you can and can't make work in a horror game. Jump scares, harder to make work. Certain kinds of reveals, not as easy to make work, but some things you can do a great job of really building dread and making things feel unsettling and slightly off, just with little subtle things, like the fact that the farmers didn't do anything. They just stood there no matter what we did. Like that's so unsettling. But in terms of respecting people's lines and veils, to me, it's just like you're handed characters as a DM and you work within the confines of that. And it's the same with players, and players have, the boundaries that they have and different play styles. And so just, being aware of it. For me, I actually write any red line stuff on a note card and I stick it next to my computer. So I'm constantly seeing, okay, this is stuff I am not doing. And, if something happens, then you deal with it and you address it and you acknowledge what happened and you work together as a group to kind of heal that issue and move forward.
And I will speak, Alicia, to your specific fear and to probably other people's fears, including mine. I actually don't run that much horror. I like dipping my toe into horror waters every once in a while, and then I'm like, okay, I'll be over here with epic adventure. So there's a couple things. One, once again, I commend Erin and the writers of this book, and especially this adventure, for offering a tense horror game that not only is about tension and worry and things that we all kind of feel. It gives a broad enough scope around any specifics that you can change some things, and there is actually there's one very specific thing and one kind of general thing I did change because of Lines and Veils. And so I feel like if you've got, let me back up. This adventure, I think, is really good. Speaking as someone who is a baby horror DM, it is a really good one to dig into because it's not immediately asking you to go to Ravenloft and, you know, dive into hardcore horror. It is, you can craft those moments that are more about the off-settling dread, and the way you craft them. There's a lot of description given in the book to draw from. And then if you've got a player who has a line about a specific thing, it's a lot easier when you've got those tools to, we'll just move in this direction. Well, we'll just, you know, skirt around. So yeah, I totally understand, because that is also one of I do a lot of improv DMing. And so I am very careful when I've got the Lines and Veils up, because I'm always very aware that I don't want to go in that direction. And in a horror game, it's a little easier to accidentally go there. But this adventure, and then also Van Richten's Guide, and there's a bunch of people who can speak way more eloquently to running horror games in a safe environment. And the last thing I'll say is something I said before, which is, once again, your players want to meet you halfway. If they've signed up for a horror game, they're telling you their lines and veils because they want to be safely horrified. They want to be scared. They just don't want to be upset. And so I feel like, once again, your players, when they know that it's a fun house, it's the scary fun house, but they're going to walk out the other end, they will meet you halfway there. They will intentionally get into the mood because they want that. So
I want to throw one other resource in specifically for this adventure. Okay. There's a fantastic novella called Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark, who's an Eisner and Hugo and Nebula nominated, I think.
Ring
author,
Shout or Ring Shout? Ring
Shout, SHOUT. That's all about Gullah folklore. And it follows like a monster slayer. And it's just this, it's one of my favorite things I've read in the last year. And tonally and thematically, it's very much about, you know, Gullah folklore and call and response and you know, Black culture in the Gullah areas, and it's but monster hunting. And I think there's a lot that's really applicable to this adventure. Like, as we were going through it, I was like, oh, there's Ring Shout stuff all in here. So big recommendation for everything P. Jelly Clark writes. His stuff is fantastic.
And we did get a question in chat that I'll skip ahead to, which is, where can I find safety tools or a safety list for my players? Not only in Van Richten's Guide, but look online for the TTRPG Safety Toolkit, which has kind of become the standard, I think, in our industry.
I linked it in chat.
Perfect. It's a resource for a bunch of different tools that you can then pick from that will work for your table. You know, like I have a set that I find work best for me, especially when we're playing a lot online. You might find some different ones work in different situations, but absolutely, that's a free resource. It's just a huge library of some awesome stuff. And it's not difficult. It's really, really easy. It's really easy to get going, and it's really easy to manage, because especially those safety tools, they're basically just templates that help you and your players to get things figured out. And I'm not surprised that we've talked about this for 35 minutes, because it is such a portion of this specific adventure, but I do want to have a chance to ask you a couple other questions. Someone had asked, what was your starting point for writing your adventure? Oh, no, that's not the one. I'm not going to go there, because that's the whole thing. There we go. If you rolled a low stat, how can it be changed or played as a positive element of a character or as a quirk in the game? And you all rolled badly every once in a while. And I'm not just talking about our homebrew, you rolled a 1, what happens? But so when you do roll badly, when that's a 5. What is your process for turning that into an interesting moment?
I think the harder you lean into it, the better.
I like that.
That's the more you commit. When you take that to an 11, that's when it becomes fun instead of something that is hampering your ability to win, because it's really easy to slip. And I've been playing D&D for 20 plus years, and it's easy to still slip back into like, why are you not winning this game? But the reality is the winning is the fun of it. So when you go into how that failure can, bring other things forward, or how that can become a personality issue for your character, or something that you start, bringing in, that's always fun.
It is. I mean, I've always said, like, it's definitely heartbreaking to low roll when you have like this big epic thing you want your character to do, and then you roll low and you're like a 6, and then that's just it. But I like Jen was saying, I've just learned to realize that that's part of the story building. Like there's ups and downs, so that's what makes it more exciting. When you get a high, you're like, I got it, like it's like a big exciting thing. So whenever I roll low, even though it's truly annoying, and let me tell you, I have quite the dice jails for my dice because I've had it with a lot of my dice. But I've learned to just realize that that's part of the game, and I try to have fun with it. Like I remember one of my best moments was my character. There was a really slippery floor in a game where me and my friends were playing, and my character wanted to do like this crazy Matrix type slide across the floor without touching it thing, and I rolled like a 3. So instead I made it where like she slipped and like break danced and did a moonwalk and fell, and it just didn't work. But that was just it. But in my head, I could picture her just trying to roll with it, even though she failed. But then the next thing she did well. So it's a balance part of the game.
Yeah. And also, if you really are determined to raise those numbers, you can talk to your DM about trying to find items that might do that, or, downtime options. Like there are mechanical ways to improve those things if it really is hampering the fun you're having. But there's also great
that's part of the game.
I think the what's cool to me about that is the opportunity to just make it into a story, or incorporate it into the story of your character, which I think there was one session, I can't remember if it was the first one or the second, where I just couldn't roll above like an 8. there were like multiple rolls.
What is wrong with you?
What are you doing? Yeah. So yeah, like, to me, I think at that point, Lauren mentioned something that I thought it was really cool, which was that my character was like distraught with, his thoughts were elsewhere, and just like that made total sense, because part of his backstory is that he's seeing this place that he had very good memories of being all screwed up, and that made total sense for the character to be just out of his element and not 100% focused. And it only makes I know Alicia mentioned this, but like it only makes the moment where you actually kind of like you actually get a good roll is like, it's go time. Like it makes it all the better. Yeah.
And I'll also say, as both a player and kind of as a DM too, although not as much, it's also okay if you roll low on something to have that moment of aw. And if you can't think of some way to turn it into a story beat, if you just have that disappointed moment, like that's okay. Try to move on from it and do something else. But if you've, especially in some combats, sometimes if I roll low, I'm just trying to get through to let somebody else try to do something. So you don't have to turn every low roll into an opportunity for a distraught moment in this character's life. Some of them are just, well, okay, moving on. And that's totally okay.
There.
So you have the rest of the party to save you.
Yeah. And certainly I have appreciated when I've played characters that are more about making other people do saves, because then I don't have to do any of the rolling. So, yeah, you know, sometimes if you're thinking more about how worried you are about the dice, maybe I'll lean into a character where you don't have to roll as often. You're making the DM roll as often.
Mhm. I do like what Mario was saying about turning into a story beat. When I first started playing D&D, that was a lot harder to do. It was just accept the fail. I guess I didn't roll well. That's it. But now I like the idea of going, well, you know what? Like Mario said, she's kind of off her game. She's nervous. She doesn't know what's happening. Like, this generally doesn't happen in her life. So of course she's gonna roll low. Like, sort of like that. So that does work. It did take me a while to like learn how to do that, but
yeah. A lot of the things that we do, especially since we've been playing for a while, it took me a while to learn it. There's skills to learn, and I'm not always good at it, even on camera. But as I think about all the times I messed up spells and things. This is more of a general question. I want to start with Mario because you got to introduce your character sooner than Alicia and Jen, but all of your characters are so unique. How did you design them? And so I wanted you to start because you kind of came in after the game had already begun. What was your basis for designing your character?
Yeah, I think the starting point for me was I knew the party was going to God's Breath, and I wanted there to be an element of connection to that. But I also wanted a way to sort of express just both the adventure that I wrote and also its inspiration, which is Mexico, because that is obviously what I identify the most with for obvious reasons. So I kind of ended up with a character that was mixed, who had been born in this place in God's Breath, and then he didn't spend like almost any time there before his family moved to San Citlan, and then eventually he grew up there, and that was the starting point for me, and then everything kind of coalesced in my head from that. Just the idea, like, just really leaning into the mixed heritage and making him a half orc, and the psychic element became part of. I think Lauren was mentioning before the which is totally tragic. I mean, I think that's that's a fair way to describe it, because as part of the background, I basically expressed to Lauren that I wanted a character who had inherited something from his mother who had passed, and but the thing that he inherited wasn't necessarily something that he knew or wanted, which was this kind of like psychic ability. He was a little bit afraid of it, and the whole idea sort of turned into what Vint ended up being, which was initially just the idea of reconnecting with his past and his heritage in multiple senses. And I think that was accomplished in the past, and it was great.
And I think, especially in the last episode, that's a moment where the dice were incredibly important in telling the story, because you were leaning into some of those abilities, and your character was talking about how you were afraid of them, or you were worried about them, or you didn't have control over them. And so the moments in where you rolled really codified, okay, how is this going to go? And I mean, I'll say as a fan of Vint, I was really happy to see, like, I think you nat 20'd one of them, and like you were on top of things. And so as a fan of your character, I was like, yes. But even if they had rolled low, that would have also, like we talked about before, been an opportunity, for your character to, I don't know what your character would have done if things had gone badly. But those are really interesting moments to dive into, and I felt very honored that you trusted me in those moments to go there. But yeah, those are also times in where you roll that d20 and it's now in charge of the story.
Yep.
I don't know if Alicia or Jen, I know we talked a little bit about your characters at the
Yeah.
very beginning. I don't know if you want to just chime in with like, what was the initial impetus for your character? Like, what was the thing that finally made you go, oh, yes, cricket?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I'll keep it short because as Jen and Laura know, we can talk about our characters for hours on end because we do that. That's what we do. We will literally, for a 10 episode series, we will create a character with this 15-page backstory just because number one, it's fun, but number two, it helps us understand why the character might make decisions in different situations if we know the entire scope of the character. And also, it's just like I said, it's fun to do that. I chose cricket. To make it short, I've never played a healing cleric before. I've played a war domain cleric who might as well be a barbarian in many ways. But this is my first cleric that's like, okay, my job is to debuff and to make sure that y'all are safe when you run in there, guns a-blazing. So there's a little bit of panic associated with that, especially in a horror setting. But I talked to Lauren about it, and cleric happens to be her favorite class, right, Lauren? Your favorite class?
I happen to like playing clerics for reasons.
For reasons. She sold me on it. So I was like, for this series, I'm going to try rolling cleric, something written. So I'm happy because I'm learning. So when you decide to play a cleric, you then go into what type of cleric, and you're like, oh, that's a big difference. They're all really different, and they all do different things. And depending on what kind of party it is, it'll serve a different purpose. And I was like, I just want to play something interesting. And there came the Domain of the Grave. And what I liked about the Domain of the Grave is that it's not a death domain cleric. It's not necessarily like the goth chick with like the dark hair or whatever. To me, and Lauren and I spoke about this, it's more about someone who really respects the balance between like life and death and the importance of each one is as a cycle in the living existence. And I love that sort of reverence for something that's so philosophical, which is why we call her a philosophy cleric. And in that, her god is like two different gods, and they're like sort of a yin and yang, night and day, day and night sort of thing. They represent two different sides of her. And so part of Cricket's struggle is like just figuring out like in this like who she is. And so me learning how to play a cleric, Cricket learning like who she is, kind of, I don't want to give a lot on her heritage just in case I want to bring it up in later games, but that's how I'm trying to play this. A couple people wrote to me and said, oh my God, the shovel. And I was like, I don't know. The shovel is just because I tend to think shovels are hilarious weapons. Have you ever been hit in the face with a shovel?
No.
Is that something that happens to you regularly?
Only by accidentally stepping on it.
That's the race for me.
That is not an experience I can say I've had. You know what? I will take that under advisement, and maybe that will be something I will just think about for now. Well, and then Jen, real quick, although I think I have an idea, what was the impetus for your character, like the starting point?
I wanted to play something really different than everything else I've been playing recently. And Wisteria is very different from those characters. And I was really interested in trying to figure out a non-traditional version of Bard. And because Radiant Citadel is so much about, the fusion and hybridization of different cultures, so many different cultures use flower arrangement and landscape architecture and things like that, flower language as part of, as an art form. And so drawing on that idea, kind of that sort of was part of it. And yeah,
I remember when you texted me, call it cottagecore bard.
It was just cottagecore bard. Yeah, just that was the tone of what I was thinking. I wanted something. I had no idea what kind of stories we were going to be playing. I wanted something that could be useful in any group and was going to be a fun party member to have in the group. And also just I loved the idea of being a native to the Radiant Citadel. So we had those ties if we needed that for story on the Citadel. But also it was just a fun chance to get to play with flower language and create a fun friend and just sort of live in a very different variant of Creation Bard than I had played before.
Yeah, I'm very happy with how all of the players, especially since we've had so many rotating players, have been able to come in and out so easily because of everybody taking that care of, I want a character that it does want to be there and is willing to think the best of people, I guess would be the way I would put it. Like, you're all coming to each other, and yes, some of this is seeded as, oh, you know each other ahead of time because of story reasons, but also just all of these players have done an excellent job of thinking of making a character that wants to work with others, that wants to be there, that feels confident enough in their abilities to want to be able to contribute. And especially in a show like this, where we do have a bunch of rotating cast members, I find it very rewarding, and it's just wonderful to have that, because, you know, sometimes interparty conflict is good, but sometimes you just kind of want to see the whole group get along and go solve the adventure. And there's
also, we all wanted to put the focus on the stories, on the writing, on the adventures, and highlight this incredible work by these phenomenal authors. And so, if the focus was too much on
us
party dynamics, that you lose some of that.
And I'm going to, so the last question I have is kind of specifically for Mario, but it branches off of all of that, because yes, absolutely, the core of this show has been taking from that awesome book over there, and you know, from this setting and everything. And I think it's important.
This awesome book?
That one,
This one right here that everyone should go pick up?
Mine's over there.
Yeah, we're all just pointing at it. But I think it's just as important to we're highlighting the adventures by having these awesome characters go through them. Like, the adventures are amazing, and then you help bringing them to life. And like we were talking about with the horror genre, you have to care about the characters to care about what they're doing, and you've all done an excellent job of that. But I'm gonna do one last question for Mario, because in a couple of episodes we are going to be playing your adventure. And
Can't wait.
And so there's a couple of intermediate things that are going to happen, and then we will be playing through your adventure in Sansatlan. And I know you don't want to give anything away or anything, but is there something in general you are the most excited to see your fellow players do, interact, see? And you can be as vague as you want.
Yeah. So, I think, how do I say this? So there's a lot of elements in the adventure that it's basically layers upon layers of like my own experiences, and just like a more generalized Mexican just culture experience that isn't necessarily my own, but it's kind of like adjacent to me because I've lived in multiple cities. So I'm curious to see if any of those resonate with any of the players, for one, and also the audience, like if the audience is gonna see familiar things, and there's an interesting dilemma. I think there's, in general, none of the adventures in Radiant Citadel has none of them are black and white. And I think a few of them, like very few of them, have like a real happy ending. I would say. I don't know how that
bittersweet, probably.
Yeah,
as
it's
close
a
as
little
you can
bittersweet.
come.
Yeah. So I'm just curious to know what the decisions that the group makes, like how's it gonna end, and how they're gonna deal with the dilemmas that are presented in it. So yeah. It's
also-
super vague, but
But no, that's perfect for what is about to happen. I will give an incredibly specific thing because thanks to you and this book, I now know about the Sholo Eats Quintly. And I spent a lot of time practicing saying that, and I'm so happy that I got a
was
chance
so good.
to learn about this go learn about this dog. I
Yeah.
worked in
Amazing.
dog care for a couple of years, and I didn't even know about this dog. And it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
And that's why I was really excited when everybody got to meet
Mhm.
that incarnate, and then we're super happy about the puppy.
Yeah. They also look like I have to say one of the things that I like I have to keep reading because a lot of people know about just the general dog breed because they've seen Coco, and they're like the dog is presented in a goofy way, and they're thinking like they think of this dog kind of like a goofy looking dog, but if you look at them, they're really beautiful. They look like just I don't know, they almost look like the Egyptian jackal.
Yes.
Yeah, they really
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they look.
I remember
really,
when
really
one
cool.
won the dog show. I don't know. It had to be
Oh yeah.
15, 20 years
It
ago,
was-
maybe. But that was the
Yeah,
first time I
people were
really
like,
saw
"What was
one. And
that?"
yeah, I remember hearing the commentators going, "This is so amazing because
Yeah.
this is not a dog we usually get to see it here." And like,
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
going, "This is the coolest looking animal. Like, what
love
is going on?"
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then they put up Shirley's. See, I'm not even gonna be able to say it now because I don't have the word in front of me. They put up the full name, and
You can just say
was like,
Sholo. It's
Sholo,
people
yeah.
call them like that
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
because it is a long name.
Yeah.
It's cool.
But
I
it
did practice a lot.
yeah, I'm just nervous, so like saying anything right now, I'm just going words.
No.
But they're cool. That was a long way
Yeah.
to say they're very cool.
They're super cool. And I'm so happy that you put that into the book. And I'm super excited for everybody to get to your adventure. But we are unfortunately out of time on this adventure. So we'll take a moment and tell everybody where more of your awesomeness can be found. We'll go in the same order, starting with Alicia.
Okay, everybody, Alicia Marie here, and you can find me on socials at Alicia Marie Body. Like I said, I'm up to costume stuff constantly, especially since Halloween is like right around the corner. So I'm in costume zone for the next couple of months, but also a lot of RPG stuff coming up. Just if you join me on socials, you'll see what I'm doing. It's usually something really fun. Live a lucky existence right now. Okay. Dude.
I am Jen Kretschmer. You can find me on Twitter and most socials as @DreamWisp. You can find me streaming on Twitch as DreamWisp Jen, Mondays on my channel in the evenings, Tuesdays on Demiplane RPG for Children of Erte. Wednesdays, I am playing Vampire the Nightlife on Play Renegades channel. And then Fridays, I am here with these lovely folks. I have some other cool stuff coming up, but following on socials is the best way. And also, one of the things that we did, which is going to be our raid, is we're going to go over to Michaela Sims' channel, where we're releasing the 4th episode of our Mage the Ascension game.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Finally, I'm very excited to see it. And
Nice.
please join us for that, where I play a dream walker person.
Ooh.
Slipping into the cracks between your consciousness and doing magic there.
Ooh.
Awesome. Well, I am Mario Ortagon. It's been awesome just playing with you and being a part of this. It's been amazing. I am a writer. You can find out about me and what I'm doing over at Elwarius on Twitter. And I sometimes stream on Twitch, but I'm on a bit of a hiatus right now. And I'll be back eventually. But overall, I'm working on a bunch of stuff. And most recently, I'm writing some NPCs for Anansi's Tapestry of Lives, which will be coming to Kickstarter very soon. So get hyped for that. I thank you for all of this. I can't wait to see you play through The Fiend of Hollow Mind.
And I'm Lauren Urban. I've been your humble DM for this evening, although I've just kind of been your moderator for this evening, which is kind of the same thing. I think we tell a story together, and that's just fine. You can find me on Twitter as ObaLauren, where you can find all the stuff that I'm doing. The most important thing being come on Wednesday, where Akira is going to have to deal with a lot. Thank you to all of the people in chat who submitted questions. If we did not get to your question is awesome. We just didn't have time. Thank you to our producers, because they're awesome. And certainly our producers and our moderators, we could not have done the show without you. Thank you to Anansi's Tapestry of Lives, which is literally why we're here doing the show. And yes, I do pull NPCs from that book to show up in our adventures. One has already shown up, and maybe there'll be more. And I think that's all the thank yous, except to thank my players for being awesome. And we'll see you. So next week we will be back with a actual new episode. And thank you for joining us. And wherever you are in the universe, we hope we've brought the light of the Radiant Citadel to you. Bye.
Bye.